What's up, everyone? Welcome to season 4 of My Boulevard podcast. This season, we're doing something special. I am here with my co-host, Missy. Say what's up to the people, Missy.
Hello, I'm so excited to join you, Dhati. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to talk about the who, what, when, where, how, and why of urban missions.
That's right. This season, we are going to be walking through together, like live, real conversations. We're going to be talking about real questions, really practical wisdom about how to do ministry in urban environments.
Yeah, this is going to be a primer for all of us. So let's join this journey. Let's grow, learn, and push forward urban missions together.
Stay tuned. This season, we're going to talk about how you can do ministry where you live, where you work, and where you worship. So let's go.
Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of This Is My Boulevard podcast. My name is Dhati Lewis.
And I am Missie Branch.
And we are here with the missionary, David Johnson. What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing wonderful, on top of the world.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you've been following us, but we have been going through the 7 stops of an urban missionary, and today, we've been bringing on different missionaries, and today we're bringing you on because when we think about this stage of ministry formation, right, that we was just like, this is you. You are one of those, I would say you're a polymath in many ways.
Yes.
You've been a pastor, you've been business owner, you've been nonprofit leader, you've been church planter.
Wow.
You're currently working in the nonprofit space. You have become all things, all men. And so it was just like, man, when we're thinking about the type of person, right, that could hit all of the variety of different missionaries that we have in My Boulevard, I was just like, David Johnson.
Well, this is good because this is step 4. So I think you're right. This particular stop, I should say, stop 4, where it's healthy ministry formation. I think this is right in your ballpark.
Right. Well, it's an honor to be on here, but I definitely not an expert, but I definitely can share a lot about what not to do.
Yes. I mean, that's some of the best lessons. Some of the best lessons learned. You can save people 5-10 years of heartache and pain by not taking this step. So that is definitely addition by subtraction in a lot of ways.
Well, what's this stop? What is this stop?
Yeah. So when we talk about this idea of this stop, we're talking about like, how do we form ministry formation? Like, how are the ministry structured for sustainable impact? Right. We're moving from the vantage point of you as an individual with this zeal and this passion, desire, doing all things, right. And then saying like, okay, man, this thing has to live beyond me.
Yes.
And so how do I begin to bring structure and things? And so for many people, this is the missionary going from a missionary to establishing a core team to start a church. This is the nonprofit leader getting other people who are about the same focus, the same energy. This is the businessman that has equal other investors, right? We're talking about how do we have the ability to get beyond simply ourselves. We see this in Jesus's ministry when he says the harvest is plentiful. The labors of few, and then he empowers his disciples to do the same things that he was doing. So in one way, that's a lot of what we see, in this stop. But this is also the idea of where you begin to structure yourself for impact, right? Yes. This is that stop. You're starting to address the brokenness in a systemic fashion. Right. It's not just because, we can do things in an acute way with one-offs, but now you're saying like, how can we systemically address some of this brokenness? And so whether you're a poet, pastor, prophet, polymath or practitioner, this is about kind of that ministry formation, preparing for the long term.
Well, we say ministries are supposed to be created. Ministries and organizations are supposed to be built for the long term, right? Not just for right now and not to be real quick influence and, shot in the dark, but for longevity. And so I know that you've done a lot of organization building and church building. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you've built.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've had a unique settings. I've been in rural. I started off in rural ministry and then ended up in more inner city, urban context. But one of the things that was unique in a lot of the areas that I went to, they were all, when you say there was not necessarily brokenness around, but even the church formation had been kind of demolished. And I guess I was the last Hail Mary pitch. Hey, just call this guy David Johnson to see if he can stir up something.
Wow. Okay.
And one of the things that I always have done is I always been at churches or workplaces where there were no resources. And so mainly, like I said, if there was no resources, or if there was no even people resource, like you said, harvest plant laborers are few. So we had to start. And so one of the things looked into is first organization we did was in Holly Springs, Mississippi, where we worked with, because in that area, we saw the need for, there were no youth activities that were happening. There was no opportunity for kids to get involved with things. And then we were looking for a way to be able to actually build the opportunity to be able to access the youth and young people in the community, because the church did not have very few young people. And so with that, we started with engaging the need of the city, assessing the need, building partnerships with local city government and asking them questions, and not just assuming that. That's what I assumed at first, but they confirmed it. But then find like-minded people who had that same interest and desire. And from that, we were able to formulate people who had an interest in youth, interested in the next generation, and then kind of start turning that. So what about long term? This is helping right now, but they're going to grow, but kind of developing some type of discipleship model, trying to figure out how do we sustain this beyond David Johnson. So if David Johnson is not here, how does this keep on going? Because it can't wrap around me, because if I'm going, this dies. And so one of the things we did, we had to follow some of that formation was to establish an organizational type model. It didn't start off that way. It was more from a social standpoint, but then as we started organizing it started organizing around the mission, and not just around people saying they're supporting me in a vision or just a need.
That is good. That is good. That is good.
And so that was one of the key things, because I realized, not because I got it right, but because I got it wrong, that a church church formation and these ministries cannot be built around necessarily a person. Sometimes it takes a person to help engineer, but it's got to be, as someone once said it, it has to be bigger than your logo and your ego.
Wow.
So I was always looking for who I was going to give this to, who was going to be able to take this on after me. And so then I began to go, starting in Holly Springs, into other communities to find leaders who had the same interest in their community, and then how we could connect them to ministry. And seeing sports is a ministry. It's not the traditional type thing, but this is a ministry. We're organizing groups, we're organizing parents, and we're but this is a ministry, and help changing people's mindset of what ministry is, and that no, it's not just Sunday morning, but this is something that we're doing on a regular basis, and these children are looking up to us for direction. But then we also realize not only direction, this was looking up to us, that parents started looking into us, and it grew from being around the sport to connecting us to resources in the community, to could you help us with this? And it's almost like you become a pastor as a coach on the football field.
And one of the things I was going to ask you about that is the first time you did it, and I know that you've started football programs and football teams, and I think that's kind of one of the things you're talking about. Did you do that from the position of like a nonprofit leader? Were you a pastor at that time?
Yes.
What was your vocation when you were starting some of the?
I started off as a pastor. I was a pastor at the time, associate a pastor, and but when I went into the community, I realized that was a barrier. So I had to figure out some way that I could just come in and be just like everybody else. And where that was, I didn't lead with that. People just knew me as a person who just wanted to organize and get something going in the community. And I found out in that area that was very helpful because I was almost, judged by some of the other things or broken things people had seen in the area by churches and pastors. So I had to lead from this. And then as people got to know me and see me, oh, yes. And they're like, you a pastor? Yes. Like, I just thought you was a coach. And then because of that, or people would say, you talk like a pastor. Are you this? And so that's how it came about. But yes, my occupation at that time was pastor.
As urban missionaries, we know how important it is to make a lasting impact in our communities. But what if the key to multiplying leaders, the key to multiplying small groups, raising up a new generation of global leaders is already at your doorstep? That's where Churches of Welcome comes in. This national movement equips churches to welcome refugees and immigrants, embracing the global church that's emerging right in your own backyard, right in your own community, right on your own boulevard. You see, through robust discipleship, pastors and leaders are equipped to respond to the refugee and immigration crisis while building thriving churches here in America. This isn't just about resources, though. It's about developing a relationship with World Relief, walking alongside your church to create a community of welcome, and how you can multiply leaders by welcoming people around the world into your community. World Relief staff will walk with your church throughout the year to help you discover the right resource and the right response for your context. And just for My Boulevard community, you can use the code MyBoulevardWelcomes to get 50% off the Churches of Welcome membership. Join this movement and learn how you can impact lives in your community and beyond. Visit churchesofwelcome.com to learn more. And remember, together, let's create spaces of welcome, healing, and hope for those who are most in need.
You talked before about the difference between organizations that are driven by you, like they want to rally around you, but then there's no longevity to that if you have to move on. How were you able to determine whether a ministry, or how could anyone determine whether a ministry is flourishing because it's being sustained by a person, or whether it's being built with an infrastructure to keep going?
This might sound very too practical, but disappear for a week or two. Disappear and see it how it's sustained. I'm not being facetious here, but that's basically it. If it cannot run without you, or if you're going for, let's say, a period of time and it's going to lose something or lose its stability because you are not around it, or if you're the only person that people feel that is, knowledgeable and able to keep it going, then more than likely it's built around you. You're not bringing people alongside you who can continue it in your absence. I've been trained. One of my mentors has always taught me, don't start anything unless you have somebody to succeed you.
Wow, that's good advice. That's
good
advice.
Always build. You would not play on a sports team with first string only. You got to have a first string, second string, and you got to have somebody to back up. And so even the first string, they're still being developed, even though they may not be necessarily playing, but always have somebody you're taking with you on the journey. And I just believe that that's a biblical principle, that ministry is not for the lone rangers, that we should always be having and gathering someone to go along with us on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. And so like as you are building and having people going on a journey with you, how do you ensure that the core of what you're doing is relationally driven and not just systemically or ministry driven, like a programmatically, I guess I could say it that way, programmatically driven.
I think too there has to be a breaking it down to the lowest common area. I think it goes down to just doing life together and not just doing ministry to that particular ministry together. You're spending number one time together, get to know each other, and being involved. So primary in our instance, in some areas that we've done nonprofits or like say a sporting event, we weren't just interested in the kid who was just playing football. If that kid played basketball, I wasn't coaching, or the people on the team wasn't coaching it. I would show up to their basketball games. I would, if they had some special recognition at school, I would show up to their school, or show up, maybe they have a day and I know that they don't have a parent, father figure, go spend some time at lunch, eat when they have a lunch day, because I know that's going to be very important to them, but not just showing up when it's time for what I need them for, but also being able to around that team, bring them along and help them understand the relational aspect as well of the ministry. It's more than about just what we do and what we're focused on right here. It's all about building this, like I say, it's a family, and it's building this relationship.
With every family, there comes some stuff, right? There's the great family reunions, and then there's the moments where you're like, wow, this is my family.
Yes.
What are some of those challenges that you faced as you've been building organizations, whether it be those organizations that were specifically ministry or parachurch or the church? What are some of the challenges that you faced?
Number one is multiple visions.
Wow.
Multiple visions.
Yes.
Some people will come and be a part of the initial vision, and then they veer off because they get a different vision. And anytime you have multiple visions, that's division.
Wow.
And I have seen that so many times. And that's what we normally call splits. And church splits, ministry splits, organizational splits, because somehow another vision arose. And what I've always found in my particular case, some of those visions came from, again, that same word, egos and logos. I could do it better. Or I could do it differently. Or I would do it differently. And, just like every single, I would say every second string player would have caught the ball. Every second string player would have made that shot. But again, you weren't in the game. It's different when you're in the game. And so a lot of people, I seen that was the number one thing I have seen. Then also patience. Sometimes when things don't happen fast enough, we think we must be doing it wrong because it's taking too long. And sometimes, especially in the urban, people just don't change because you did something once or twice. Well, I've been doing it. Well, how many times did you do it? Twice? No, that's for long. We want the quick fruit. We want the quick fruit. And we don't always realize that sometimes you may just be there to sow the seed, but you may never see it come together. But that may be maybe a generation later that it starts taking root up, but be faithful and just sowing the seed. If that's what you're called to do, just sow the seed.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge.
Yeah. How did you not, because like with that challenge, the tension of now, okay, you're in this formation of trying to build sustainability, right? And then you like not shift that focus, right? From it's been all people-centered, because I've seen so many ministries, they were doing a great job when they were just people-centered, and then they start trying to build the org around it, and they become so top-heavy that they haven't been able to actually minister to the needs. It's sort of
Yes.
like when the mom and pop shop is like the food was good at the mom and pop shop, right?
Yeah.
But then as soon as you start franchising it,
It's not the same.
it ain't
Nope.
It's not the same.
You know what I'm saying? So
No.
like,
Wow.
so bringing that structure in terms of ministry, how do you keep the main thing, and not allow the tail to start wagging the dog?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's one that I think is a big tension there, because sometimes you feel that you need certain things to be able to move forward, and sometimes there is a vision drift, and I think that's where you need a plurality of people together to hold accountable to the vision, not just to the loyalty to the person or individual, but you need like you said, like the urban missionaries and other people who you've heard the vision and shared to be able to hold you accountable to the vision. And so that's why it's not always good to just find people who will agree with you or just be loyal to you, but help you understand the need and the vision and will hold you accountable to that.
You know, when you think about what it means to have vision, to kind of stay in your own lane, after a while, you start just doing things and it becomes management as opposed to, really visioneering. And then you see people still start to tilt away from health and into just growing. How do you what is the difference? Even how do you even know the difference between a church that is, or a ministry that is just about growing, and one that is focusing on health?
Wow, that's a very good question. That one I would I say when to get more about the statistics. When I say the statistics, it's just of course we understand that it takes money to do ministry. Sometimes
Yes, we need our metrics. Yes,
we need our metrics. We need that, but at some time when that becomes the goal,
right.
the goal, transformation is no longer important. It's just about, because see, some churches don't even realize you can be considered successful by meeting your budget and having butts in the seat, but yet there's no transformation. Lives are not being changed. But to others on the outside, that's a successful church because of the numerical things, the metrics that you see on the chart. And some people are operating off the wrong metrics. And again, finances are important. Don't get me wrong about that. Finances are important. People are important. But when it becomes just about the numbers and not about transformation, then I think that's when it gets into that issue where it's more about the growth of the organization more than the growth of the individual people.
Yeah,
That's great.
So what advice would you give someone that is trying to move, like an urban missionary that's trying to kind of move into that phase where, they're trying to get sustainability, they're trying to become so what advice would you give to them to taking that next step and not miss a step?
When you say sustainability, and what aspects of sustainability?
I think he's talking about when we're creating the structures. We're at this particular stop. You're building structure. You're going from being just something built around a person. Oh, I had a dream of a church plant. Now I got to start hiring people to help me, or gathering people, even if it's volunteers, to help me build these structures. Those structures help lead to sustainability.
Right. Well, I think one of the things for sustainability, definitely try to find people. With any great organizations, you have this thing called a board of directors. And I often tell people personally, we ought to have a board of directors that not represent people who are like us, but represent our weaknesses. And so you got to be a very humble person to do that, because you are selecting people who are stronger in areas that you are weak. You got to realize that, hey, I may be the visionary, but I am not organized. So you got to have, I may be a visionary, but I know nothing about finances. I may be a visionary, but I don't have anything. And a lot of times I see a lot of, especially in the church, I see a lot of great orators, but they are bad at church administration. And the churches fail not because they're not great speakers or not great names preaching the word, but because of the administration, and they don't have that set up. It causes failure in the ministry not to be able to thrive. So I think one of the things that I would encourage is that make sure that you always be able to recognize your calling and your gifted, and then know that it's going to take more than that to be able to do what you need to do in the city.
That's a word, Doc, right there.
That is it.
Like,
yes.
recognize who you are and then know that it's going to take more than that.
Yes.
Right? That's my takeaway right there.
That's why he said it's got to be more than logos and egos, right?
That's it. That's
really
so
good.
great. Oh, we're so grateful for you.
Yeah, this has been good, David. Man, I really do appreciate you, man. And thank you for joining us, man. Like,
it's
this,
great to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, because I mean, as we were walking through, I was just like, man, we got to connect you guys. Someone who has been through this process over and over again.
Yeah.
Right, man, it's humbling to be able to come and to sit at your feet, Doc, and to hear, you know what I'm saying, and to hear the wisdoms, to hear the words that you have for us.
This just points to just the greatness of the My Boulevard family, and just how much wisdom and experience and just practical hands-on information we can get from our missionaries who are out here doing the work.
Yeah.
So grateful for you and your wife. So grateful.
So once again, this is another episode of This Is My Boulevard. We had my man David Johnson, missionary here now in Atlanta. I'm glad to say, brother in Atlanta.
That's
doing
right.
The ministry, doing the work. Yes, sir. So until next time, remember, take responsibility of where you live, where you work, where you worship.
Amen.
Peace.